Dear Dr. Weiss, have you know our dear friend Steve Lott has passed away. Can you tell please about your story? How you did you first meet with Steve Lott?
Of course. It's really sad that Steve passed away. I know I didn't hear through the telephone the old-fashioned way. I found out through social media, I guess the new way that people find out news the fastest. But I was, of course, pretty upset. Steve was very influential in helping me put together the book that I wrote, the first book in the world on Cus D'Amato called Confusing the Enemy, the Cus D'Amato Story. And it must have been about 2002, 2001 when I first met Steve. So it's been a couple of decades. And I realized that Steve was part of Big Fights Inc. while I was doing some of my research. And when I looked up where Big Fights Inc. was, it happened to have been 4 blocks away from my apartment in Manhattan on Madison Avenue. And I just thought that was very serendipitous that the project that I'm doing, somebody that I need to speak to, was so close to me. After reaching out maybe once or twice, playing phone tag, Steve was very gracious. He was happy that something or somebody else had an interest in Cus. He was happy that there was finally somebody organizing, putting together clippings, articles, audio tapes, all in one place. So I approached Steve with my co-author at the time, or was actually my editor, and it was just a great relationship from the start. He was really so open to sharing stories, pictures, old movie films. I used to go to his apartment there. He would put a reel on and show me some old black and white films. I just couldn't believe the amount of information and data that they had. But in essence, I met Steve upon my journey of writing the book on Cus D'Amato, and I'm very happy that I did.
How do you rate Steve's contribution in the boxing world?
Well, a lot of people know that Steve was very close to Mike, although they had a very strained, or so to say, up and down relationship like most everybody in life. They stayed tight and people knew that. And Steve was around in the earlier years. And I figure, when somebody is around, when you're kind of, in that burgeoning time, it's important to kind of develop a relationship with them that's lifelong. And I think media knew that. I knew that. Many people around that wrote other books knew that. So Steve was able to provide a lot of contribution and a lot of input on the earlier days of Iron Mike. Everybody wanted to know about Mike. And Steve, stayed in the same apartment, in the same hotels with him, used to travel with him, eat late night with him. Those guys were buddy, just like any teenagers, going on an amazing roller coaster ride. So Steve was there and embedded in the beginning of Mike's life, and everybody was able to ask Steve questions. And I don't think there's anybody that Steve denied. So knowing all that knowledge, he was a key figure in sharing information about the earlier days of Mike. Bill Caton, obviously, Jimmy Jacobs, who he was extremely close with, playing handball with him. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, that was Steve's connection. And those were the reasons why people wanted to know and understand what Steve knew.
If we talk about Boxing Hall of Fame, yeah?
Yes, I've been there.
Yes, how he create this association, this is Hall of Fame, and actually about his role in this boxing.
So when I talked to Steve, when he was kind of putting it together, it was really a matter of wanting to do something right with all of the information that he had and wanting to be a part of it himself. Not just, I know they sold everything to ESPN, but he also maintained many pieces of memorabilia and many videos, and he wanted to really captivate an audience, or catapult, I should say, the stuff that he had in the right way. when he moved to Las Vegas, he knew Mike was in Vegas, so Steve did move out to Las Vegas. And while out there, he made a lot of connections with people in the town, of course, and was close with Mike at the time. And I think at one of the hotels, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been the Luxor. He connected with the owner. They put a small, like a small room, or it was almost like something you would go to an attraction where you were able to see all of Mike's equipment, Muhammad Ali's gloves, Joe Frazier's jacket, and really just had an amazing memorabilia wall. And I have many pictures from it. So I think it all spawned from him moving out to Vegas, having all this stuff, putting it together, and really meeting and making the right connection at the Luxor to be able to make it flourish so people could see it. I think that's how it was initially started.
Actually, in the last interview with Steve, actually 2 months ago, he answered some questions which I sent him on his email. He answered that boxing today is turned into a show. The real boxing ended with the champions like Tyson, Ali, Foreman, Fraser. Yeah. What's your opinion about this?
I had many conversations with Steve over the decades about that, and him and I were in agreement. I think that everybody these days wants to be a fighter, and we always talked about that. The trainers and coaches these days and the managers are out for something different, are training the fighters in a different way. And some are excellent. The sport evolves, no doubt about it. And I'd like to see the evolution of the sport, but there is something to be said about boxing's heyday, when people were in it not for the money, they were in it for notoriety. There wasn't 21 champions, there was only 7 weight classes. Everybody knew the heavyweight champion. It was a talking point on everybody's tongue. You were able to name what was going on. I think the fact that everything has spread out, really gotten, to say even a little bit more corrupt in so many ways, even though it did tighten up a lot since the earlier days of Cus and when the mob was running boxing. It's kind of still not as clean and straightforward as people would like it. I think people have to look out for the fighters a lot more. And Mike is doing that right now with some of the stuff he's doing. But I think, yeah, Steve and I always talked about how, the trainers are just not teaching people how to truly move their body, how to move their head properly, and how to defend themselves. It starts out with learning offense. And I think it's just the reverse. Things should be learned in a different way. And, we go back to the basics, even in the peekaboo, you go back to the basics. You got to master the basics first before you move on. And I think everybody wants to learn how to do the knockout shot right away, how to throw like Mike Tyson right away, how to be savvy on the speed bag right away. And it takes a long time to develop those skills. It takes a long time of sparring to develop the timing, the footwork, the ring knowledge. And I think that, some fighters around today have experience. I mean, look at Canelo. I think he's doing amazing. I mean, he is a different fighter than, he was when we first started seeing him. He's evolved and really went and moved in the right direction, but he has also the great people behind him. And that was really the main point of this, of that question, is that things are a little different. I think the goals of boxing are different. I think people are in it more for the money and really for the notoriety of being champion.
I know you like a very great and famous specialist in diagnostic in the therapy and mental health. Yeah.
Yeah, sports medicine.
Yes. We were know about Cus' philosophy and his actually about his science. Maybe some cases who use today his system, his philosophy. I mean, in boxing, because
Cus always used to
find it, he can't find.
Yeah, Cus always used to say, if you think you need to do it, go do it. So he was a very mental game. If you think you need to go do it, then go do it. If you think you need to stretch, stretch out. If you think you need to go lift weights, go lift weights. So again, he had a very interesting psychological approach to what the fighter wanted to do. But he would never go say, you need to go stretch, you need to go work out. He wouldn't say that. He would say, if you think you need to go do it, you go do it. But in that day and age, the idea of cross-training, recovery, rehabilitation, those weren't concepts in the 80s. And then even in the 70s or the 60s and even the 50s, while Cus was around. But the one cool piece that I was able to dig up while doing research is Cus's brother, Nick, his younger brother, happened to have been a chiropractor. So Cus knew some techniques from his brother, and he would send some of the fighters that were at the Gramercy gym to his brother back in the day. But as it evolved towards Mike, that wouldn't be something that he would do. But he was savvy into body work in some way in the earlier years, but not in the later years, I would say. He also got very into nutrition. He met a couple upstate, the Grosses, and they were very into herbal nutrition. So Cus realized that, what you put in your body is vitally important. And when he was working with a fighter named Buster Mathis, he put him on a very interesting diet of tiger milk and different type of juices. So Cus had an awareness of it, but I think it faded over the years. But he realized that there was a time and a place for the right hands-on work and the right nutrition. So I think he was a little bit ahead of his time for boxing. Yeah, I just want to, make it a point that people know that, Steve Lott was a really amazing man. He did a lot of good. He was always gracious to people. And he was definitely influential on helping me put together Confusing the Enemy, the Cus D'Amato story. He'll be missed tremendously. And I hope that, the person that takes over big fights really maintains the authority, and we're able to all see a lot of that stuff that he has that might have been in his own private collection. But God bless Steve Lott, rest in peace.